Saul. He tried to destroy the church. And what happened? What happened? When he tried to destroy it, it brought life. It brought life to the church. It expanded the church. He tried to kill it, but it brought more life. If you try to kill the church, it just brings resurrection. They killed Stephen, right? Here's Stephen. He's up in trial before unjust men, bringing unjust charges to him. And you know what it says? It says he didn't lash out. He didn't get angry. It says he actually had the face of an angel. And he says, Father, do not hold their sins against them. And then they killed him. And what did that do? Did that snuff out the church? Did everyone have to go into hiding after that when the persecution came? Man, no, that emboldened them. It emboldened the people. They saw Stephen's example. They saw his compassion. They saw his faithfulness to God. They saw his faithfulness to them. They saw this compassion, this power. And this propelled the church. And we've seen this pattern many times where the church is persecuted, but then it leads to more life for the church. The greater the persecution, the greater the oppression, doesn't lead to violence and oppression on our part, but it leads to greater love and joy. One of the great examples of this in the 20th century was China. 1949, the communists, they overthrew the national government. And the communists, they threw out 736 Western missionaries. Gone. Bye-bye. And they actually killed a number of Chinese pastors. Their goal was to snuff out Christianity. Let's get all the Western missionaries out. Let's kill some of the Chinese pastors. Let's snuff out Christianity in China. And what happened was the remaining few Chinese Christians who, though, just like what we saw in Acts 8, they had become reliant on all the Western missionaries, okay? Because they had gotten the great teaching, they had gotten the great preaching, they had gotten the money from the Western missionaries who were doing the ministry in China. All of a sudden, those guys are booted. And the remaining Chinese Christians are scattered because of the persecution. They then had to take what they had been taught, what they learned, and they had to go become providers. They had to go become providers and take that message as lay Christians and share the gospel, counsel with the gospel. And what happened? What happened in China? Do you know? It exploded. It exploded. Do you know how many Christians in China there are right now? 100 million. 100 million. Is that crazy? That's what God does. That's what happens to the church. When you think you're going to just destroy it, it actually brings more life. And the Chinese Christians, they weren't responding with violence and oppression when that happened. They responded with greater love and joy. A great example of this was a few years ago. In 2008, China had the Sichuan earthquake. 68,000 people died. 1 million Chinese came out to volunteer to the relief efforts. Now, 100 million Chinese Christians is around 7% of the population, something like that. So still a small amount of the population of China. 1 million Chinese came out to volunteer. Do you know how many of those were Christians? 50%. 50% of those that came out, 500,000, were Christians. Say, hey, we're here to serve. We're here to be a blessing. We want to love. We want to see you meet Jesus. And that's what's happened in China. It's absolutely incredible. The more persecution, the more oppressed, the more livelier the church gets. The more livelier it gets. That's what happens. The more scattering, the more gathering. The more death, the more life. How is that possible? Why does that happen? It's Jesus. Absolutely. It's Jesus. Jesus. Stephen. Who was he looking to? That propelled this. He was looking to Jesus. Stephen was up with some unjust charges. Not only was Jesus just a few years before that in the same predicament, up against unjust charges, evil men, but he's also facing the cosmic wrath of all humanity's evil. And he faced it on the cross, and he said on the cross, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. They do not know what they do. Every time you think you're bringing death, it actually brings life. It brings resurrection. Incredible.